In this video, I'm going to break down how I plot all of my books and organize my notes on a free platform called Notion. Just a quick disclaimer before we dive in. This is a template that only contains placeholder examples, but it is structured in the exact same way as my actual writing dashboard. I'm just showing you this one to avoid spoiling the entire Belladonna series for those of you watching this who are actually keeping up with my work. If you end up liking the template and how it works, you are more than welcome to copy this exact same setup, or you can save yourself some time by purchasing this template on Etsy. I'll have a link in the description below. But alright, enough with the chit chat, let's dive into the tutorial. First, let me introduce you to the homepage. Over here we have a quote that changes every time you reload the page, and then this block here you can technically put whatever you want into it. What I like to do is have the book title and a one-sentence description of the premise. Scrolling down past the main linked sections here, we have a work session tracker. For the day section, I usually like to just write the day of the week. So today you can see over here, for a quick reference, it's Friday. So I'm just gonna say Friday here. Let's just go ahead and say what time it actually is right now. It's 5:12 p.m. And let's say I finish working on the book. Let's say it's like 6:30, right? It would automatically populate how many hours I worked during that session, which is really cool. So let's say this was a writing session, and let's say during this period of time, I was able to write 1,200 words. So this is another cool feature. It shows you what your speed is. So as you can see here, it says 923 words per hour. And I also get to choose what scene I worked on. Chapter 1, Scene 1, Luna gets ready for bed. It seems like such a boring start to the book. I'll go over what these numbers mean later. Let us just, for the heck of it, add one more example so you can see kind of how it works over time. So let's just pretend that it's tomorrow. What I'll do is click this twice to make sure that both show up on the same day. And let's say tomorrow I have a session from around noon to, let's just say 2 o'clock, 2-hour session. Let's say this is an editing session, right? So usually with editing sessions, I don't count words. I only count that when I'm writing. So anything else like plotting, editing, publishing, marketing, I won't input anything into words. And let's say I was editing chapter 1, scene 2. A nightmare strikes, yay. I'll show you why we're linking this later. One thing that I really like about this work session tracker is that it actually shows you how many hours you worked during the week. And you can also look at it on a monthly basis. Obviously, we only have 2 examples inputted here. Really cool. You can see how much you did in all time. So these were some older examples that I had inputted a while ago, just as I was working on this template. This is something I really wish that I had done earlier. Maybe for my first book, Leaving Wishville, I would absolutely love to know how much time I spent on that book, because looking back on it, I have no idea. Let's move on to the task deadline tracker. First of all, we have a playlist here. This is just a placeholder. If you have a favorite writing playlist, you can definitely just delete this and put yours there. And then this is a task deadline database. It actually keeps track of which ones are higher priority with a little marker here. So let's say this is due August 17th, so that's quite a while from now. You'll see it changes the alert to say later. This has been really helpful for just any tasks that are related to my book. So I threw in some examples here of things that I would add as deadlines. For example, hire a cover designer, outline all 12 chapters, finish the first draft. So just think general deadlines that you want to meet, or just random tasks that you don't want to forget about. This is a really great place to put them. This is the last section on the homepage, and it's the weekly planner. It's where I organize my goals for the week and my goals for next week, as well as my daily tasks for milestones that I want to hit. pretty much what I'll do is every Sunday, once I've completed all of my tasks for the day, I'll just go ahead and set it up for next week. So I'll know that Monday next week is going to be the 18th, and I'll just manually change all of these numbers. It really doesn't take that long. And by this point, these will all be checked. So let's just pretend that all of these boxes are checked. The week is completely done. Then all I need to do is highlight and delete to restart the week. Then I'll usually just delete these two here and move my goals for next week. I'll just copy and paste them here. So then I can get started and add my new tasks for the week. Let's say write chapter 2. Maybe on Tuesday I want to write chapter 3. Then I'll just go in and plug in an outline of what I want to work on during that week. Personally, I've found this to work really great, and it's very simple, it doesn't overcomplicate anything, and it's pretty quick to set up for the next week. Alright, so we have hopped back to the top of the page. As you can see, we have a new quote here. Let's dive straight into the outline page. This is the page that I use to plot my books. But before I explain how this works, I just want to clarify that by no means am I saying this is the best way to plot a book. This is just the structure that I personally use. So these acts and these story beats are based on a variety of structures that I've used for my books over the years, and I've found that this hybrid approach has worked quite well for me. So you're welcome to use my 20-beat structure, or you could honestly even delete everything on this page and outline however the hell you want, but I'll show you how I outline in case you want to follow the same method. This is kind of the big picture, so what happens big picture during Act 1, Act 2A, and then this is kind of the midpoint of the story here, and then we'd get into Act 2B and Act 3. Then on this side of the page, it dives in even deeper. So during this setup act, these are the story beats that I try to fit into the story. And then during Act 2, these are the story beats. Act 2B, these are the story beats. And then Act 3, these are the beats. You're welcome to pause and read through them. Like I said, this is just based on my own interpretation of a variety of different structures and what I've found that has worked for me. This block right here is what I want the message of the story to be. So in this example, let's say the moral of the story is, I do not need approval from others to have value. Then what I do is I show what the protagonist's viewpoint is in Act 1. So for example, the protagonist continually quits job after job at the slightest feeling that they're not being respected. And then Act 3, we show how that character has changed. The protagonist joins a job that they always wanted but didn't join at the beginning out of fear of being seen as a failure. Then we get down to the intense section. This is the outline. So allow me to explain. As you can see, this is broken up into the same 4 parts. So what I'll do is I'll kind of take glances up here as I'm plotting out the story to just make sure I'm hitting all of these story beats. And then I'll go in and I'll start adding chapters. So these are just some placeholder chapters here. Normally for the chapters, I'll just leave all of this stuff blank. And it's really the scenes that I plan out. So for example, I have the Dream Snatcher is the chapter. And then underneath that, I'm able to add scenes. The reason why I use this scene numbering is because on the homepage, when you're searching for chapters, it's just really easy to find them. I'll be able to really quickly know, like, oh, this is from that chapter because it starts with 1, so it's from chapter 1. This is the first scene of chapter 1 and the second scene of chapter 1. So this numbering system for me has worked really well, and I would highly recommend that you organize it in the same way if you're using this template. Scene 1-3, so this is the 3rd scene in chapter 1. Thunderstorm, fight. Then let's say this is from theoretically a different character's perspective. Let's say it's Tristan. I would put him there. The cool thing about this is it has a link to the story beats. So I can actually click this and it'll connect to the beat descriptions up here. Hope I'm not losing you. It'll connect to the story beats up there, so I can very quickly see, okay, does this scene accomplish the beat that needs to be there, if that makes sense. Once again, like I said, you don't have to use this act and beat descriptions. If you want to just delete it and focus on the outlines and not have this column, that's perfectly fine. But for those of you who want a little bit more structure and who enjoy it like me, I found this to be a really fun way to organize things, because you could even be looking up here, for example. Let's say I open this, I can even see, okay, this is the chapter or scene in which this story beat takes place, and I can kind of flip through and see how all of these beats are addressed in my story. So moving back here, another really cool feature that I like to have is adding dates for Belladonna. Even though it's obviously not taking place in our current time period, I believe most of the dates take place in 2022, 2023, so I have actual dates just to use as an anchor. It's very helpful, so I really recommend using dates, especially if you're writing a book that takes place over a long period of time. This is automatically generated, this character count, and let's say Aurora is also in it. This will automatically change to see that there's 2 characters. Same thing with locations. Let's say Willow Shade Cottage and Ember Claw Cavern, so that'll change to say 2 locations. And then this is very fun because it links back to the home page. Remember the word count tracker and tracking your hours? This will tell you how many different sessions, writing sessions, you have sat down to work on a given scene, and it'll also tell you how many hours were spent on it. Usually what I'll do is in the summary section, I'll write a few sentences, and then whenever I'm starting to flesh out the story on a deeper level, I'll actually open up this page and I'll write a few paragraphs or so down here, kind of explaining the story in more depth. Then for acts 2A, 2B, and 3, it's the same thing. You can add a chapter, like let's say chapter 5, the horse show, I don't know. And then how you add scenes is you click this little toggle and you add a sub item. So then 5-1 would be the first scene here. The horse preparation, I'm just making this stuff up. Meet the horse riders. I don't know what horse riders are called. I feel like there's an actual term for that. But anyways, that is how you would go about setting up a new chapter and setting up those scenes. Now let us take a look at the world building section. As you can see here, I have a variety of different categories. We have government, environment, infrastructure, and culture. The World Wiki section is especially helpful if you're writing a story that takes place in a world that isn't our own. So how it works is this is just a brief description of the type of stuff that you could potentially put inside each of these pages. And then I usually just organize my notes however I see fit, but I really like the different categories for organization on the big picture and being able to quickly find stuff. Then on the right, we have a Pinterest board with some of the initial pinned ideas for the Belladonna series when I was first working on it. So this has a lot of imagery from what I imagined for Nightshade Academy. So it's very nostalgic looking back on it, but you can easily delete this, embed your own Pinterest board here, or maybe you want to add some images, Spotify playlist, you can do whatever you want. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you up here is the research section. For topics that I'm interested in researching but maybe haven't researched yet, it'll say not researched. Like, okay, I just heard about Victorian clothing and I think that could be really interesting to apply to my story. So I'll keep it here under the not researched status. But let's say I start researching something like, I don't know, Japanese architecture. What you'll see here is that it'll immediately say it's not researched, so I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm currently researching it. What I'll do is I'll click this, I'll make sure to add a wiki category. right here, you'll see that there is one for architecture. And then I'll just have my random notes here. I'll have links to blog posts, and it'll just be a scattered, disorganized mess. But eventually, at some point, I'll want to move my notes to the actual page. So as you can see here, this is the professional page down in the World Wiki, and I'll want to take all of my scattered notes and put them into this one. I'll say that this is added to Wiki. So once it's added to Wiki, it'll be removed from this unorganized research section and will be added to the organized research section. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at the characters page. This is where I track all of the character profiles. Luna, who is the placeholder character. So here you'll see that there's a variety of roles. We have protagonist, antagonist, supporting, and peripheral. Then here you'll see there's an image section. You can upload your own image for the character, and it'll show up here on the main page. Then we have this character profile, and you'll notice that it's very similar to the World Wiki, in which there's a description, there's a topic, and you can organize your notes here. Same with the World Wiki, you can organize your notes inside however you want, and you are absolutely welcome to add your own properties here, so you can do that by clicking unhide and then adding properties. Maybe you want to track birthdays, you want to add a summary for the character where you write a few sentences about them. You can really customize this however you like. So this is where the linking of characters on the outline database comes in. Aurora was in 3 scenes, Jasper was in 2 scenes. It's just really fun to go back and see who gets the most spotlight throughout the book. I just like having that information. And then here is a quick way that you can see all of the characters in a table format. Now let's move on to the locations page. This one is very similar to the characters page. The only difference is that there isn't a table for these. Personally, I don't feel that I need to plan out locations as intensely as I do with characters. What I'll usually do is just write out in paragraph form here whatever it is that I need to know about the location. And then like the character one, we also get a scene count. So this is also linked to the outline database. You can see how many times the characters are present in every given location, which, like I said, is just really fun information to have. Let us move on to the management page. Let's say that the cover isn't designed yet, right? I'll open this and I'll really only have notes. So maybe there's some ideas for the cover I have, maybe I have designers that I want to contact and get quotes from. And then once it's actually done, I can add the actual files and store them here so I can see them at a glance. And same thing with the interior design. So ebook interior, I'll have notes. Maybe once it's done, I'll upload the actual ebook file here. And then the front and back matter is stuff like the copyright page, the dedication. Maybe I have a map I want to add, so I'll put it here. It's just organizing the stuff that isn't actually book content. The reason why I have these blocks here is because you can very easily copy and paste this information. By the way, this is a copyright page that you're welcome to use as a template if you'd like. It's the one that we use at Lost Island Press. Now let's take a quick look at the brain dump page. This is the least structured page, but I've found this to be very helpful for just the most random notes that hit me at the most random times. I like having a page that's just full chaos, where I don't have to stress myself out thinking, where would this go in all of these organized pages? What database do I put it in? And I can just quickly throw it on this page and then organize it later. Now let's move on to the references pages here. This first one is the author branding page. You can add your own colors, you can add your YouTube channel banner, your author headshot, any social media images, maybe your main font that you use is Poppins, EB, Garamond. This is really nice to have. The next page is the marketing plan. So this is, again, kind of similar to the wiki page, in which you have different categories and you can organize your notes inside. These are just suggestions of different ideas you can brainstorm about. For For example, who you could write about who your target audience is. What are your goals? Do you want to get more sales? Do you want to get higher readership, a more dedicated following? Do you want to sell merch? What is your social media strategy? So there's all kinds of stuff that you can explore here as you are building your author brand and finding readers for your books. The second to last page is the income and expenses page. So this is where I track all the money that comes in and goes out. So let's say you hire a cover designer on Fiverr named Susie Smith, and you spend $37 on a cover design. That's a rather cheap cover. And let's say you make $430 in April. Wow, this is pretty good profit. These are just random placeholder numbers, these aren't real. So this is just a really nice way to easily at a glance see how much money you're making from a book, how much you've already spent on a book. You can also look at it on a monthly basis and on a yearly basis if you work on a project over a long period of time. And lastly, thank goodness, because my voice is starting to fade here, we have the progress journal. So for example, these are just some random ideas here of what I would kind of title them. I just hit a breakthrough with chapter 21. Procrastination might be keeping me from finishing act 3. And they have these little tags that you can have so you can look at them by tag as well. Thank you all for sitting through this tutorial. You can use the special discount code TUTORIAL to get 20% off your order on Etsy in the case that you'd like to purchase this template. Before we end off, I want to give a brief shout out to Madeline for suggesting that I make this video, and I'm pretty much just blabbering at this point. Please join my newsletter. I'll have a link in the description below, and you can get a free copy of my second novel, Capsule. Check it out. Bye.